Hello there. Thank you for choosing the Citizens Chat Show and for being a part of this conversation. My name is Judith Atim. I'm your host, and today we're discussing two main issues. The proposed amendments to the Administration of Parliament Bill and the terror alert that Uganda is on. And we want to basically look at how to strengthen our security across borders. Thank you very much. Let me welcome my panelists to this conversation. Dr. Robert Ojambo, Head of the History Department at Kyambogo University. Doctor, good afternoon and welcome. We've missed you for the last 2 weeks.
Oh, thank you so much, Judith. Apologies for the last 2 weeks, but I'd gone on public duty. Now back.
Thank you. Good to have you. Joseph Othieno, political commentator and UPC Ideologue. Good afternoon, Joseph, and welcome.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. You look fantastic.
Thank you. Last but not least, retired Major Awich Pollar, the Director for External Services at the NRM. Major, good afternoon and good to have you.
The mighty party. Good evening.
Okay, so gentlemen, a lot has been happening this week. As you're all aware, Mityana South MP Richard Lumu Kizito has been granted leave of the House. He's currently busy drafting a private member's bill. And in it, he's proposing a number of amendments to the Administration of Parliament Bill. I actually met him a few days ago and we were discussing this. So some of the proposed amendments include that the leader of opposition should be elected by all opposition MPs and not the party with the biggest number, as has been the practice. 2, he's proposing for a slot for ex officio for the presidential runner-up. Also, there's a proposal to have a minority representative on the Parliamentary Commission, and he wants a constitutional amendment to have the Deputy Speaker to come from the opposition. And that cabinet should also be vetted the shadow cabinet, should be vetted by the whole opposition caucus. There has been, of course, a lot of reaction and responses from the public. There's opinion that's divided depending on who you talk to. But the issue that has perhaps caused a lot of debate is the issue of the leader of opposition being chosen by the opposition MPs and not like has been the case. I want to hear your thoughts and your reactions to these proposals that the Mityana South MP is working on. Let's start with you, Dr. Robert Ojambo.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judith. Leader of opposition is not a new thing in Uganda. I think we started this at the time of independence with our first leader of opposition was Milton Obote in that interim government where Bendikito Chiwanuka was a chief minister for a short while. And since then we have had 11 leaders of opposition. But what I want to say, it has been always a controversial position, especially in the dispensation that we have today. In a real sense, a leader of opposition can only be in a parliamentary system where we have an executive prime minister leading, like in Britain, in India, and countries that follow the parliamentary system. But in Uganda, we took up something which is Katogo, a mixture of parliamentary and the presidential system. For example, in the presidential system, we have the minority leader and the majority leader. The party that wins, which is with the president, has a majority leader. Then the minority leader is chosen from the party that is second. In the parliamentary system, normally, in most of them, even the leader of the of the parties become MPs, because in the parliamentary system, the party goes for competition and then it nominates people who represent the party in parliament. And in Uganda, we sort of have almost an individual merit kind of thing, whereby people only lean to party because the constitution says that we are now running a multi-party system. And remember, there is even another arm there of the independents. And I've also been hearing about the independents, and some people keep confusing us that the independents also should go and should participate in choosing the leader of opposition, or they also need a leader of their own. But they forget that independents are there individually. By the term independent, it means that you are not aligned to anybody. You go there in parliament as a singular person. So you don't have alliance with anybody, because you have said, for me, I don't understand UPC, I don't understand DP, I don't understand NRM, I don't understand anything. I want to go there as an individual. From the makers of the law, that was the thinking. But in practice, you have seen these days, independents are people who have failed in parties. When they fail to get nominated in the parties, or when they feel that they are being treated unfairly or they don't have a chance, they declare that they're independents. But they are not independents in the real sense of an independent member of parliament. Now, when you come to the issue by Lumu, the issue by Lumu also is not a new one. 2 years ago, not 2 years.
2019.
2019 is now about 5 years. It's about 5 years. There was a conflict between FDC and Winnie Kiza. And this arose from, in parliament, normally we have had these two things. Once the people are elected and they go to parliament, they start dealing with parliamentary relationship. And the parties feel that sometimes some of those people do not adhere to the party calls. And Winnie Kiza was one of them. It was out of some disagreement, because just to give a good perspective to our listeners, we have had the leaders of opposition ever since we resumed multi-party democracy in 2005, from only two parties. FDC, which has had the majority of them, then now NUP, which has produced so far two. Now, FDC, there was an uneasiness that the members of parliament were not so much in touch with the political party, especially under the leadership of Winnie Kiza. So there was thinking that Winnie Kiza should be removed. And unfortunately, the leadership in parliament did not believe so. To be specific, Right Honorable Kadaga. Right Honorable Kadaga was of the view that Winnie Kiza should remain. There is no reason why she should be removed. So through their clandestine method, Medadi Segona was fronted to come up with an amendment of that same law, so that a leader of opposition is chosen by the parliament to protect Winnie Kiza. But later, things happened, and before everybody knew, FDC had proposed this honorable, the former honorable of Gulu district, Aola Ochan. And without the Kadaga camp knowing, Olanya, they were used to like him. When he got opportunity, Kadaga came back when Aola Ochan had already been accepted by Olanya, and she was the leader of opposition. So that thing died like that. But for the case of NUP, again, I want also to give a small background. There have been a lot of murmurs ever since Senyonyi was appointed leader of opposition. Of course, it came with the controversy. Some people may think that Mpuga was removed because of the 500 or the 400 million saga of the commission. My take is that no. There was already a disagreement between Mpuga and his new establishment, even earlier. And they were calling him Mufua Luzungu, that he was speaking a lot of English, and he was not representing the foot soldier thing. And for Mpuga to disprove them, remember he came up with some project of pushing for the release of people who had been imprisoned in 2021. I remember that push. In fact, when Puga left, it died. Now nobody talks about it. It's a dead thing. He tried that, but he did not succeed. Of course, later, they find a scapegoat and they remove Mpuga. Now, when they removed Mpuga, many people thought that the person to replace Mpuga, who was senior, was going to be Nambeshe. Nambeshe, who was then the chief whip of NUP and the opposition in Parliament. Of course, the Chagulanyi wing did not think so. And when the name came, Senyonyi shocked people. Senyonyi is a first timer in Parliament. In fact, he has been there for the last only 2 years that he has spent there. Number two, he seemed not to win the confidence of the senior legislators in Parliament. And that's why you see, ever since he was elected, was appointed leader of opposition, he has been moving with a few people who come from Kavule, but the senior people have sort of retracted from him.
Do you think that's because he's new to politics and he's considered relatively young in these things, and there are those who think because they've been in this system or in these political circles much longer, they would be more deserving?
Yes, when you look at Parliament, seniority matters a lot. Seniority matters a lot, and if they don't show it, they will not quarrel about it, but they will just withdraw. You remember when this
Okay, you wind up.
I'm winding up. So I am saying that seniority matters a lot, and for that matter, majority of the senior legislators of NUP, and I can name them, Nambeshe, the likes of Mwanga Kivumbi, the likes of Medad Segona, the likes of even from other parties like Segona, Semudu, this one of the UK and many others, sort of retracted, and have been looking for a way on which they can remove this man. But in the next thing, I will come back and tell you what I think about it.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to you, Joseph. Some people think this proposed amendments by Honorable Lumu this is not the most pressing or most urgent issue that Ugandans should actually be grappling with. I don't know if you are of a similar view or not.
It's certainly not the most pressing. It's not the most pressing, and certainly just like taking Parliament to Gulu at the cost of possibly nearly 4 billion Uganda shillings was not really the most urgent thing. In any case, the issues being raised both in Gulu and over Lumu have been there. But that said also, the closer I looked at the proposal, the more to his credit, there's an element of merits because the initial headline was about the election of the leader of opposition, and that was struck because had our mind's attention first. But if you go from the election of the leader of opposition to the slot for the deputy speaker, to many others, obviously they're still generally far-reaching. But in any case, these are conversations that political parties should be having in their manifesto as part of their manifesto commitment, and say that as part of our reform, parliamentary reform, if we win elections, this is the position we will be able to take, rather than bring these kind of things, 12 months to another election. That said, though, it is true as Robert suggests that the 1995 NRA Constitution, of course, was a rushed thing, basically to cleanse NRA and to basically give them some semblance of credence of constitutionalism, and at a huge expense. Some of the makers of the Constitution were decent men and women, but many of them were so driven by short-term partisan interests that they got carried away by their funders, who were predominantly Bretton Woods-related nation-states, and so hence they thought that creating a constitution that would favor NRA was basically bringing democracy in Uganda. the hybrid element of the political system was, I've said it about before, almost certainly, possibly not necessary. At the moment, it seems to be serving the minds of the opposition, considering the manner in which we are stuck with Mr. Museveni. But the parliamentary system that we had pre-1995, indeed pre-1985, it served us well. You know, we had an executive prime minister who then went to become an executive president, elected. The leader of the largest political party takes on government, and the leader of opposition is a simple majority leader, in this case Paul Semogere, and we had a fantastic parliament. Semogere is very comfortable in heaven because he really must be sympathizing with the Chagulanyi, because no police officer ever touched Semogere's hand or even pushed him, although Semogere was actively backing any rebellion in Luwero and the streets of Kampala. But so now, if you see what's happening with the opposition leaders, including parliamentarians, it's a different situation. But look, I think that in principle, there is a cheeky element to this conversation. If the largest political party takes on the official opposition slot, and if the largest opposition party would believe that they exercise their internal democracy, and that the leader of the party would have been elected with the mandate of that political party in normal settings, you would imagine, therefore, that whoever they pick as a leader of opposition, there's merit in the argument of all other political parties participating in that election. But if it was actually a normal democratic system, both national and into political parties, there is really no reason why you would contest that position, since it's a position which is a preserve to the political party in question. Now, when I look at the UPC, I don't know what, because UPC now we don't have a formal leadership, but when I look at the UPC constitution, in which if I were president and I was participating either in the election of a leader of opposition, if I'm not in parliament, or for that matter, in our case, a chief whip, it is not something that a president would necessarily appoint on their own volition. It would be either something, a matter for cabinet, party cabinet, or an internal party structure that, if you like, delegates a party official, in this case, the Legislative Assembly. So if the person has already been subjected to that democratic process, and that slot is, if you like, a preserve of that political party and organization in that question, I would not really have major worry with that. So in other words, actually, that would be a preserve of NUP. Right. The argument, of course, which is fair, is that if you had an opposition that has got, say, 150 members in the assembly, and the largest political party, for argument's sake, has 50 legislators, you would say that perhaps 100 legislators are being led in the assembly, not against their will, but without consultation. But again, I've argued that in the event that perhaps I was the leader of the largest political party in largest opposition political party, such are the kind of conversations that I would engage leaders of all the other political parties, and build some kind of consensus around a particular candidate. The mode that takes, whether or not it becomes an elective or not, or that you give the mandate to the other people maybe to sanction or to approve, is neither here nor there. It's tempting, though, that other political parties get involved in it. But I'm trying to say that, well, we can't pick and choose democracy. In any case, then, if we're doing that, we should be saying that, look, the Prime Minister is an imposition, because it's a direct appointee of, in this case, the President. In any case, NRA members would themselves have reason to quarrel that they're not consulted. In any case, some of these things are not even determined in caucus.
Is the Prime Minister just appointed?
Yeah, the Prime Minister is an appointee. Yes. Yeah. The Prime Minister is an appointee of the President, and so, to all intents and purposes, they're appointees, So what do you say? So do party members, do NRA members, legislators,
is an appointee of the president.
So it can
There's no argument over that.
Yeah. So how far do we go with this? The other ones about the deputy speaker is an interesting one. I don't know whether you want me to carry on with this.
You could, maybe we could come back to that.
Yeah.
Let's give Major an opportunity to talk, then we would hear your response. But Major, do you think this is one of the most pressing issues that we should be having a conversation about?
Well, we or Parliament?
We as society,
as a country,
and as Parliament, the country basically.
Yeah, because a law comes from the community as an intention to address a mischief. So in this case, we would mean the parliament, who are our representatives anyway, they must have assessed and found that there's a situation that needs to be addressed. There's a mischief. Therefore, in their opinion, they would argue, yeah, it is necessary. We need it now. That is what they're arguing, because they're seeing a lacuna, they're seeing a mischief that needs a legislation. Now, that having been said, therefore, I conclude that they think there is a mischief. We may not in this room think there's urgency. Now, first of all, we are debating more or less in rumors because we have not had a draft of the bill. We don't know what will actually come in the bill or the text. Be as it is, we are debating the spirit of it. Maybe not the letter, not the word, but the word may come different, the drafting may come different and change the spirit. But we could still, for the sake of debate the spirit that we hear. Now, you see, the idea of electing a leader of opposition comes from what my friend calls individual merit. We have continued to be in the political multi-party system, but our thinking, our spirit is still individual, and therefore it informs our consciousness. But also, we have a multiplicity of opposition boxed together. If you have a situation of, say, South African Parliament, you have a freedom of forming alliances. And that's why ANC doesn't get an outright majority, but forms alliances. So there's nobody boxed into a corner. Now you are boxed into a corner, what you call opposition, but not one person, a multiplicity. So this multiplicity now brings an element that, who are you to lead me? We are so many. In other positions, you have the traditional American, Democratic and Republican. You have the tradition in UK, the Labour Party and the Conservative. And the majority of the opposition is clearly seen. Is not opposition boxed into a corner with multiplicity of 4 or 5 of them in this way. Now that brings now the spirit of this having to have elected. Now, you have mentioned the Prime Minister, whether he's elected or appointed. By all intentions, Prime Minister is elected. I think Article 85 or Article 83 provides in the Constitution says, it talks of 2 people. The Vice President shall be appointed by the President and approved by simple majority by Parliament.
Yes, approved. Yes.
So it is, so therefore, by voting for a Vice President, by voting for a Prime Minister, you are in effect electing. Because somebody can be cantankerous and Museveni appoints and they say, no, we have not voted. Because you need simple majority. Meaning, failure to get simple majority, you don't become. It's not rubber stamping. It has to be counted. 1, 2, 3, 4 to show that that Prime Minister has got a simple majority. Congress
is that
the
not case?
Yes, it is a constitutional matter.
I thought they are vetted just.
No, it's not a vetting by appointment committee. You are talking of a minister being taken to appointment committee chaired by the speaker and he becomes a minister. I'm talking of a vice president. Check the constitution, is on the Google. I'm talking of a vice president, Alupu. I'm talking of Nabanja. Originally was on a vice president, but later on the amendment covered the prime minister. If you want to look at the constitution to show you an amendment, you'll see capital letter A or capital letter B. That means it's an insertion. Therefore, a vice president and a prime minister must have a simple majority by plenary, not a committee of appointment. Therefore, Congress, get it from me, that a prime minister is elected. What do you want to say? By simple majority. Simple majority means count 1, 2, 3, 4.
These are approved major, not elected. Elected means that people are
okay, get the diction. Get the diction. Is voted by simple majority.
Isn't it an approval?
No,
It is an approval.
These are legal and political semantics.
Suppose you nominate Nebanja and Nebanja does not get the simple majority.
It has
What
not
happens?
been approved, not elected.
Wait, whatever it is. Suppose the president nominates Nabanja and Nabanja doesn't get the simple majority. What's happened? She doesn't become a prime minister. She doesn't become a prime minister. Therefore, the thinking now is, if we can vote on a leader of opposition, why don't we vote for a prime minister? Why not you? Because now, and this takes me back why I wanted the text of the draft. Because Judith seems to be saying it is the opposition who will elect among themselves. I wasn't sure, that's why I wanted the draft. I wasn't sure whether it is the entire parliament.
I spoke to the drafter of this bill. He actually says it's actually almost done. And that is actually what he said. It would be the opposition
to vote among themselves.
To choose
that is even better, because for us, the leader of government business is voted by the entire parliament, which she must get a simple majority vote. So, if it is that, laws are not cast on stones, and a society is dynamic. A society is not hard and frozen. If a mischief comes and society detects that mischief, it can be addressed. Even this one, even if we pass as a matter of law,
it is approval.
By what? Read the context.
Approval.
Read it.
By parliament.
You read the whole thing.
It is approval, it's not election.
Let me read for you if you can't read. You want to edit it. So anyway, but the proof now, whatever it is now, we now make the viewers know that the prime minister is not appointed by appointment committee. We now know that a prime minister brought in the floor of parliament on the plenary, and that prime minister must get simple majority. And that whoever is nominated
that
is contested.
I'm just throwing
you read for me. That is why this guy is contesting. Why don't you read?
I just want to throw this question, and any of you can answer. Has it happened in the recent history of our country under the president that a person he has nominated has actually been rejected? Has it happened? Any of you can actually answer that.
Yes. Nominations have been rejected at ministerial very many, including Saya, including Saleh Kamba,
so let's say
including many have been.
At the higher level of prime minister,
we have not. Prime minister, we have. But how many have we had? There are few.
Comrade Awich, what is the lacuna, in the current setup in the opposition? On the opposition that we are seeking to redress here.
The lacuna that we are thinking, I am thinking for them. I'm not a member of parliament. But what I'm thinking is the multiplicity of opposition that I've told you, UPC, FDC, DP, NUP, okay, leave NUP alone, but these other many. They are saying, but just a minute, colleagues, if you're going to be our leader, isn't it worth that we have an input? Is it fair that you become our leader without our decision? This is what they are saying. This is their feeling. So they feel it is a lacuna in that you automatically assume a leadership over us. How comes the leader of government business, we have a say? How comes the leader of government business, who is a prime minister, we vote and she gets a simple majority?
Can I just say something?
So, colleagues, I just want to wind up by saying, I just want to wind up by saying, a society is dynamic. Laws are not cast on stones. Whenever there's a mischief, it is addressed. The current set of legislators seem to be seeing there's a mischief. And they're seeing it because even the leader of government business needs a simple majority. Therefore, they feel that if that feeling is there, it will be debated. If it is defeated, so be it. But even if it is passed, these laws won't be there for 1,000 years. It will go because society is dynamic.
Judith, it's extremely cheeky that since 2005, when we returned to multipartyism, no democracy, there's no democracy in Uganda, to multipartyism, that parliamentarians, have not spotted this rather obvious, now urgent lacuna. In any case, the makers of the NRA Constitution, and this Constitution is an NRA Constitution, it's a Western Constitution, huge amount of our money, huge amount of our time, helped to entrench a dictatorship. As I said, when Museveni came from the bush, he found us with a very simple, disorganized parliamentary system of polity. Why we didn't run for it, as I understand it, Museveni sought to bring the presidential thing in order to check Milton Obote. My president was very content in Lusaka, waiting for moving on to the next world as he saw transition to democracy in Uganda. He was not interested for another election. So they brought this presidential term limits thing to try and check Obote. Now it caught up with Museveni. They brought the age limit thing, caught up with them. And in the drafting their constitution, wasted our time because an NRA constitution, I don't recognize it because UPC did not participate in the drafting. The hybrid polity, because this is now what's bringing it out. Had it been the case that we were a direct, simple parliamentary system, maybe one of the things that the Lumos need to investigate, that when we go to elections next year, that you can stand for parliament and can also stand for president. In any case, that means therefore possibly Chagulanyi could have been president, rather member of parliament, and leader of the largest political party, and simply the leader of opposition. And some of these things would not necessarily be matters of conversation. So maybe this is a kind of...
One of the proposals is actually to have that slot for the runner-up to be in parliament as an ex-official. And
then when they're ex-official, what the powers do they have? So you realize I'm actually pushing that. Yeah. That may be one of the things we need to do. And I know it will really, really make Muhoozi very happy and his family, these people who want to think they want to control our country for the rest of their lives. The idea of now all of a sudden seeing that, well, NRA may not at the next elections not be able to garner 50% plus one, and so therefore they're looking at the possibility of amending the constitution, because this constitution debate amendment conversation taking place. I'm surprised that this is not part of it, but it may lead to that. That maybe now we want to be able to review and consider whether or not actually we continue with a direct parliamentary system in which therefore the president of the country becomes the leader of a political party with the largest number in parliament, rather than actually wasting money going to coronate Mr. Museveni. Mm-hmm. When we do basically know that we'll use all our monies and our soldiers and everything else to put him to power. Maybe those are some of the challenges and rather the considerations that we need to make. That I repeat, that no, we knock off this nonsense about the presidential elections, and then we go back to the parliamentary system. That worked for us anyway. Surprisingly, it's coming from me, because I know many people think that, well, directly elected president has got much more mandate. What it has given to us since Museveni was allegedly elected, I don't see anything.
Mm-hmm. So,
Judith, let's first correct this impression to our viewers. The vice president and the prime minister, as said by my senior colleague, that they are elected by parliament. And me, I am saying no. And we are reading, let's first deal with the vice president. The vice president is provided for in Article 108 of the Ugandan Constitution. It states, there shall be a vice president of Uganda. The president shall, with the approval of parliament by simple majority, appoint a vice president.
Simple
so
majority.
The president, listen. Me, I'm not a lawyer, but I studied English from P1 to date.
And not UPT.
The president shall, with the approval of parliament. So the job of parliament is to approve. But to appoint is by the president.
Yes, no doubt.
What Lumo is proposing.
You read and finish.
Listen. What Lumo is proposing is that the party should appoint 3 people.
Nominate 3.
Nominate 3 people from whom you elect a leader of opposition. He's using the word elect. He's not saying approval. Elect. So there is going to be an election,
yes.
a contest between three people. For the case of the president and the prime minister, there is no contest. The president appoints and parliament only approves. So there is no election of a prime minister. There is no election of a president. That one may be in another country, not in Uganda, as per the constitution.
Okay.
Having said that, the matter that Lumu is bringing on table, and the viewers, for me, I'm not discussing rumors. I am discussing the official position of Parliament. Because Lumu has already been given leave by Parliament of Uganda to go and draft a law. And when he was asking for this leave, he stated categorically what he wants to go and do. And those are the amendments that Judith was reading for you there. So that is not rumor. It is in the Hansards of Parliament. It is on all official communications of Parliament that Lumu is already drafting a law. But the major items of the law he wants to propose: one, that the leader of opposition is elected from three nominees that will be made by the majority opposition. Number two, he is proposing that the deputy speaker should come from opposition. He is also saying that the person who is runners up, if he does not succeed to be a member of parliament, if he's not a member of parliament, the presidential candidate should be in parliament as an ex-official. And many others that we know are still hidden, but they are coming. Now to discuss the real thing. Lumu, when I look at him very carefully, he's not alone. He's not alone.
You're preempting my question.
Okay.
I wanted to actually, because also the concerns that we've been seeing is that there are questions about the timing of this proposed amendment. We're just 2 years shy of the next election. And also the timing in the perspective of what's happening in our opposition parties. We know how heavily fragmented the opposition is. And basically, this kinds of gaps, it presents a lot of gaps that can actually be exploited by the ruling party as well. We hear of, we've seen how MPs stand on opposition tickets and then the next minute they are signing MOUs with the ruling party, basically, so it bringing to question their allegiance and their loyalties. And we know of opposition politicians who are also criticizing the government in the public, but they are receiving envelopes when the world is not watching. So if you have a law coming up at this time, what are the implications? Then also there's the bit of, could this law be just a precursor to further amendments that could go into, say, having Parliament decide who becomes the leader of this country? Could we be heading there at some point in time? That is where that's the question I wanted to present for you to actually respond to. And you had already started talking about something in that line.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judith. The other thing, maybe before I come to that question that we need to clear to our viewers, is that our Constitution allows alliances and states the process through which it can be done. Only that NRM has not been fulfilling this. You can sign alliances with political parties or between political parties or individuals. Only that alliance must be registered with the Electoral Commission and it is recognized. For the case of UPC and DP, they have signed, but we have not seen a registration. So they are still, I think, in process, or they are running it the way they want. But once
UPC hasn't signed anything, Jimmy has got a deal with Mr. Museveni, because that's the fact anyway.
Yes,
but DP has signed.
DP has signed,
yes.
But I have not seen a record that they have recorded the alliance with the Electoral Commission. And once they record, they allowed it to work together for that time. Coming back to your question, when you see what Lumu is trying to propose, and I saw my senior colleague happy that it is presenting, but for us we call this as a carrot. In the law they are trying to put the carrot and the stick. The carrot is that thing of leader of opposition. But the stick, which is going to be rejected, are those things like that in this parliament.
I'm
that
not
one
happy,
cannot
yeah.
succeed, that we shall have a deputy speaker from opposition in this parliament, the way it looks. That cannot go anywhere. The idea of bringing the second
Runners-up to be an ex-official,
that one also cannot succeed. But what I guess is that the other things are going to
be introduced in that
that law
as amendment. As amendment, once it comes and it is at the floor of parliament, they will introduce
in other things which you have just alluded to. And I've been telling the colleagues that government under Chairman Mao are seriously drafting a law.
You remember those guys who of NRM, the disgruntled NRM group who petitioned the Electoral Commission
That election is very expensive in Uganda.
it takes a lot of time
To elect a president
and they were given a chance to go.
and get signatures. I think, I don't know whether they have registered
Back their signatures, the
NRM people. I want to bet here that something is cooking up.
that idea, this
Opposition. What would be the problem with the leader of opposition? These are small things. And today is saying tomorrow it will be another person. The real thing which you will see in parliament very
soon is that amendment that the president be elected by parliament, to go back to a parliamentary concocted presidential system. Because in a situation where you're electing the leader of government in parliament,
is a parliamentary system.
it's not a presidential system. But they, as he called it, a hybrid, this hybrid thing
Has continued. But the other thing,
which we are suspecting, Senyonyi has had, from the day one he entered the parliament, they have not had good relationship with the speaker. And recently the speaker has been on a lot of pressure, including moving parliament to these different parts, starting with the Gulu.
when Lumu was asked
Why he was going to Gulu, he did not declare that he's going to Gulu because he has a private members bill that he wants to introduce. He said he was going to Gulu because there was no caucus under opposition to agree that they should not go to Gulu. So he already showed that he had some suspicion. He was not working
some issues, yes,
with his people. He surprises people.
when he reaches Gulu, he introduces this idea
of amending the law. And I want to look at people from opposition who have proposed
amendment of the law.
Look at Asumani Basalirwa. Proposed the anti-homosexuality bill. This bill it was supposed to have been a private member's bill, but it was financed almost by government on everything and promoted by government. In fact, there were more people in the NRM who promoted this thing than anybody. And since then, I want you to look at Basalirwa. Is it still the other Basalirwa who was in opposition? In fact, in the recent Iyala thing, Jema, you remember, the Jema worked with NRM when they were electing the Iyala representative. They said they have an alliance, and we saw photos where Basalirwa was with the president, and they were agreeing that on that one they have agreed to work together. And since then, my young brother Basalirwa has been more Jema leaning with NRM than Jema leaning with his old friend Noop. They are not friends. Lumu, remember Lumu is one of the survivors of 9 survivors of DP party. DP now has 9 members of parliament, and most of them are from Buganda here. He's one of them. Lumu does not agree with Mao, but Lumu does not work well with the opposition. So we are talking about Lumu, who is in the middle there. He's neither an outright opposition member, he's neither DP, because DP has rejected his idea that he's not talking for DP. So is Lumu an independent member of parliament? No. So my view about that thing, number one, is to assist Mom to get out of the mud that she has been in, and try to tight lip. I mean, to lip up the lips of this Senyonyi, because now he's going to struggle with that bill more than concentrating on Anita Among. But two, I am also suspecting that this bill, once it is at the floor of Parliament, they have a right to amend it and add in whatever they want to add and remove. The issue of the Deputy Speaker, that one is going to be dead on arrival. The issue of the ex-official may die, but they may introduce that idea that you wanted to talk about. But the other thing is just senior officials of Parliament, that is the experienced members of Parliament, undermining this Senyonyi. They feel, if you listen to all of them, Semuju, Mwanga, Chivumbi, they feel that this man is not respecting them. He is not consulting, he is working alone. And he is working alone with the, when they are on talk shows like this one, they say that their cabinet is this musician who sings with Bobby Wine is called who? Nubian Lee. That the Nubian Lees are the ones who decide for Noob. For them, they are not being called to make decisions. So I see it as a fight within the thing, which does not solve a major problem. In my view, electing a leader of opposition will move away from the idea that was coined by the writers of this constitution and that act in particular, and it will cause more confusion. You may find an independent becoming a leader of opposition, because that has been also the argument. And I want you to listen to MPs who promote NRM, how they're excited with this amendment. They are very excited. They are saying, yeah, it should be brought. So you can know who is drumming for this dancer on the road.
Thank you. Joseph, let's hear your thoughts in relation to the timing of this bill, and as we're heading to elections, and of course the fact that our opposition is heavily fragmented right now, and the kind of loopholes this presents for manipulation.
I think I really made my observations on this, and as I said, some of these things are actually generally quite diversionary on major national issues. I think, as I said, the timing is suspect, is not necessary, and in any case, I think, like Robert suggests, that the personalities involved are people who come with very questionable intents and intentions. But that said, as I said, it is also true that this is something which was tabled in Gulu, where our money had been wasted. And part of the argument that Museveni and Anita and their team have been arguing is that they're going to Gulu to move closer to my people, that they confined to concentration camps and humiliated for nearly 20 years. And instead of looking through to the question of the realities of the challenges our people are facing in northern Uganda, we are discussing things that if you read Robert, then you know very well that, well, people playing ping pong with our lives and livelihoods. It's actually, in any case, actually an insult to the people of northern Uganda. I'm not quite sure whether that's really what they want. What the people of northern Uganda want to know is how they ended up in concentration camps, how they treated in concentration camps, how some of them had their ears cut off in the name of coin, and then we know that some coin were not real coin, and how some of them were raped, male raped, when men raped actually men, humiliating our people and breaking the necks and backs of our communities. How we now have a minister for northern Uganda, but we don't know whether that minister is Mr. Museveni's brother, resident in northern Uganda or not. How the Balalo all of a sudden are looking for land and settling in northern Uganda, and as I said, we are not giving opportunities to the Karamojong to settle in Sembebule or somewhere near Rashitura. How northern Uganda's multi-dimensional poverty index shows them as the worst, only beaten poorly by my Bukedi. How northern Ugandan children are these days, after they failed through the PLE system, universal primary education as presented by NRA, they're now experts at being askaris in Kampala in petrol stations. You know, how many of their girls are now the experts and maids to dubious billionaires in the streets of Kampala. I can go on and on and on. Those are the things. But in any case, actually, that their land is going, and that now how Mr. Museveni can pull our money from essential services and give it to a dubious investor in Atiak. How now Mr. Museveni is imposing and sugarcane growing in northern Uganda when he cannot take sugarcane growing in western Uganda. In any case, it has already been confirmed that the sugarcane growing is neither here nor there. It has impoverished Busoga. Not only has it done that, but has killed the land of the Busoga. Those are the major issues. And in any case, anyway, how northern Uganda, northern and eastern Uganda, who were lead owners of cattle in their thousands, you know, and now paupers and beggars. And if we talk about restocking, we don't know where that money is, those monies are good. Those are the issues we should be able to be discussing. In any case, actually, if part of this was to suggest that there should be a discussion in Parliament for us to institute a national commission of inquiry to investigate the atrocities in northern Uganda, the atrocities in Luweero, and seek a national truth and reconciliation commission on which the possibilities of your producers who are fundamentally fantastically young people can have a guaranteed hope in a Uganda in which we live in harmony and in unity. It would be, but for the moment, no. It's a diversion thing, and in any case, it's a diversion from the message that they did, the theft in Parliament, the theft in State House, and as I said, including the theft of giving 500 billion Uganda shillings to Roko, a private dubious Western European construction company.
Mm-hmm. Can I hear from you, Major, please?
Yes, you can hear from me. First, I want to read this provision of the Constitution about the Prime Minister. It states, there shall be a Prime Minister who shall be appointed by the President with the approval of Parliament by simple majority from among members of Parliament. The operative words here are 1 or 2, 3. 1, appointed by the President. Okay? 2, simple majority.
Approved. Don't skip
Colleagues,
that one.
you see, reaching a decision in Parliament are many. You can have consensus. They put up an issue and said, those in the world say hi to the contrary, no. Then you say, why? Then the speaker rules. Okay? Then when it says simple majority, colleagues, it means they will call one by one to pronounce. That is counting.
It's not electing.
It is counting. It doesn't matter. It is not. It is counting. Therefore, if you're in Parliament, the other way of reaching a decision is consensus. You have heard the speaker ask the House, does high or to the contrary, 9. Then they shout in chorus, high or 9. Then the speaker rules that high have it. The rule should provide, it used to, I don't know what it is, that if you feel the speaker has ruled wrongly, you stand up to be counted. If, for example, the speaker said 9, high have it, and you feel it is wrong, you stand up. When they count and you are over, then the speaker is supposed to change the ruling. But now in the case of the Prime Minister, when it talks of a simple majority, it's not saying high 9 have it. It is counting one by one. So whether you call it elected or not, the point I'm making is a Prime Minister, the numbers is by simple majority. Do decide.
That one I agree.
Yes. Now what the other guys are saying, if for the Prime Minister we count 1, 2, 3, 4, why not you? What is so special? Are you put there by God? And that is the need. The other thing is the issue of rumors my colleague mentioned. What I meant was that we are not debating on with a text, because the laws are drafted by what is called First Parliamentary Council. Now, when it goes to First Parliamentary Council, the draftsmen and women, I know my friend Harriet Obono is there. She's a draftsperson. Whatever Lumu had said, for example, election, what will come from Harriet may be something else on the floor. That is all I meant by rumors. We want the final text by Harriet Obono. who is a draft person. Harriet Obonyi is the head of first parliamentary council, the drafts lady, and her husband Obonyo is my friend. We are all same class in Makerere Law School, both the husband and the wife. So we have to wait for the last word coming from the text. The other thing is, my Congress brother has his topic that he never loses.
Major, I'm going to request you to just do that in 1 minute, then we come back and you pick up from there, from where you start. Just in 1 minute, please.
Yes, I'm saying my colleague here, he has his pet topic that he really knows very well, the topic about Museveni. To the extent that even if he moves to another radio station, he will talk about Museveni. Even when the topic is clear, the bill to elect a leader of opposition. And he's saying it is what we should be discussing. Don't be like our colleagues who used to have in O level, who would set their own question. He has revised about transatlantic trade. When they bring trans-Saharan, he goes to exams and said, if you had brought transatlantic, the question here is the leader of opposition, not Museveni. Why do you want to set your own topic? Now tomorrow, suppose they call you about Museveni, what will you say?
Why don't you leave that?
Because now
why don't you leave that to the host?
So you're very good at your pet topic of Museveni. But the issue is the topic is here. Why are you setting your own question that what we should be discussing? The question transatlantic. Sure. You want us to discuss trans-Sahara?
Thank you, Major.
Mr. Museveni in Gulu.
Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll still give you the mic. You'll pick up from where you've stopped. This is still the Citizens Chat Show here on Civic Space TV. We'll be back shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from the break, and thank you for keeping it here with us on the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. My name is Judith Atim, and we're still continuing with the discussion of the proposed amendments to the Administration of Parliament Bill. And before we went into the break, Major Awich was still making his submission. I had earlier asked the question about the timing of this proposed piece of legislation, looking at the elections that are coming soon, and also the fact that we have a heavily fragmented opposition, which, according to a lot of political observers, presents a lot of gaps that can be exploited by the ruling party itself.
Well, the timing of this proposal of amendment to have what my colleagues insist, the diction, the choice of word to be election of the opposition leader, the timing, in my opinion, is a birth of the activities, the nature, and the characters of the opposition members themselves. I already talked of the multiplicity. I think among the opposition members, they seem to think that the current holders of the majority among the oppositions is not holding enough consultation, enough consensus. I am reliably informed that during our comrade Mugisha Muntu, that before Mugisha Muntu would appoint, he would even consult the small opposition colleagues and tell them, colleagues, I am duty bound to provide for you opposition leader, and what are your thoughts? So this is not happening now. The thinking is that the current opposition are arrogant, they are braggant, they think they have it all, and therefore it doesn't augur well with their colleagues. And this brings in this timing. Therefore, the timing is not an imposition by NRM. The timing is a well-born materiality from among the oppositions. And this is what brings the dynamicity in a society. That is why even history has it that you could find the French kingdom running well, but some appearance of particular characters at a particular time changes the whole thing.
That is very true.
And that leads to...
The Louis XIV government was more dictatorial than the one of Louis XVI. But Louis XVI was accused of two things, extravagancy and arrogancy.
So, the professor of history agrees with me that timing can be factored in by characters or actors at a given time. So the timing here now may have little to do with the pending election. In my opinion, more on the actors, those who are on the stage. Preferably if you had had a whole who was the leader of opposition, or if you had had Professor Ogenga, possibly this scenario would not have arisen because they could have handled and managed it properly. So you produce, circumstances are produced by actors who are there. But of course now, they themselves may lay claims and bring blames and bring conspiracy theory. But the truth is, the oldest and the current actors are the ones who have led to the current situation. That is my view about the timing now.
Judith, just for 30 seconds, I totally agree that the internal dynamics within NUP substantially contributes to the mess in which this thing may end up leading us to. But I still suggest that the timing is suspect, and of course, Comrade Awich is a political group enjoying it massively, and I will not be surprised if they're fueling it by the manner in which they normally do. But of import, as I said also at the
Our hands are clean.
The hands, okay, we know your hands, but we will not comment further. No, I said at the beginning that in the event that possibly I was leading the opposition political party, many of these things, I think, include some of the things that we said are off air during break, that maybe there would have been different ways in which we were able to handle these things. And it's interesting, the suggestion by how my good brother Gregory Mugishamuntu would possibly lead. Clearly, an opposition political party, an opposition team, and with up to 4 or 5 major political parties with different kind of thinking, different kind of strengths and weaknesses, but actually facing a major obstacle like facing NRM, must be one in which leadership is very clear, meaning leadership at the headquarters, leadership in the National Assembly is very clear, and also therefore leadership in terms of response to major national issues, including possibly Kitezi. That the Kitezi happens, I presume, as the leader of UPs, have not yet had any phone call from any of the leaders of the other political parties. You know, Mr. Comrade Chen, what do you think, or how do you go about this? So something as basic as that. And so, no, I think it's quite clearly an element of an own goal. In any case, there is evidence that if within the NUP itself, you know, they do not consult enough, what about with the rest of the other political parties and political players? So maybe it's a message to them. But how these things reach the leadership of this organization, some of these organizations, I don't know, because in any case, I understand from social media that some of us in opposition, when you critique or criticize our opposition, you know, you get rain from a particular section of those political organizations, and some of these things must stop. I normally tell most of my young friends and supporters and my members and my trainees, including some of my aides, including those I met today, that not in my name should you go out and abuse anybody for any particular reason, simply because they have a hold of alternative view against ourselves. And this one is not about an alternative view. This is actually you have the burden of responsibility, just like NRM has got the burden of responsibility of governing. You have the burden of responsibility on behalf of all the democratic opposition. So consultation is extremely important. Working together is extremely important. I don't seem to see it, certainly not from the angle where I am at the moment.
Okay. So thank you. Now this takes us to the next conversation that I want us to have, which is Tuesday's shooting of the NUP President Robert Chagulanyi.
Was he shot?
He was. That's what we saw. That's what we heard. I wasn't there, but if you have any views or thoughts to the contrary,
it has been suggested that he fell. It has been suggested that it was some tear gas thing. But anyway.
Okay. The broader question that I would like us to talk about is to not look at this incident, but also use it as a point of reflection. This is not the first time that we see Bobi Wine or an opposition figure actually being brutalized. Whether this was a tear gas canister or a bullet and where it came from, for now, I don't want to go into that. But the question of having violence or aggression at a time when we are talking about advancing democracy, respecting the rule of law, respecting human rights, and treating each other with dignity. I think these are conversations that are very important to have. We saw how before NUP came to the fore, before NUP emerged, we had the Forum for Democratic Change. And for years, Dr. Kizza Besigye, who was the head of the party, was constantly on the receiving end of this brutality from our men and women in uniform. I would like you to actually share your insights, but looking at it with a critical lens.
In fact, before FDC came into being, we UPC got the beatings from 1986, and in fact, late in the early part of the 90s, we had shootings, including Uganda House shootings, in which a young trainee journalist, a fourth estate colleague of yours, was killed again in front of Uganda House. So these things have really happened, and it is sad that they're happening at the moment. But I want to say this, that considering the violence that was meted, particularly directed towards NUP, particularly as an opposition party leading to the last elections, and considering the violence and the deaths that did occur, predominantly again by from the membership of NUP, and that NUP is now the official opposition political party. I think it's a shame that the leader of the official leader of opposition should be subjected to any really sense of rigor by any agency, security agency. In any case, the leader of opposition, since we are discussing elections, actually when it comes to the question of protocol, Comrade Awich, in the democracies that I know, the leader of opposition would be the next person to the president, not the vice president or prime minister or whatever. So that's a very important person and personality, as it were, who should be protected and should not receive the protection, but should receive the respect across the board. And in any case, anyway, the leader of opposition should actually be, as a matter of formality, be getting, and that's maybe one of the amendments that the Lumos need to be considering, formal security briefings, for example, now that we've got an element of security there. Whether some of those things happen, I don't know, which maybe going to tell us. So that is the kind of democracy, if at all, that we'll be seeking wanting to be able to go to. But to subject merely a restraining incident with live firearms, is very unfortunate. A future UPC government, what we will do will be to make sure that any discharge of firearms by the security services, by public agencies, should be investigated. What am I saying? I am actually saying, emphasizing your point, Judy, that I think we need to reach a stage in which the lives and properties of our citizens do matter, regardless of where we are coming from as a country. But also, number two, therefore, to remind us that even if it's actually, what are these fire things that they throw? The tear gas thing. Even if it's merely tear gas canister, how much is the tear gas? So this is how money is. So you should not throw it anyhow, number one. And then number two, these things unleash this funny smoke. They disorganize the environment. But most importantly, how expensive are they? It's a single bullet. How much is it? This thing about firing in there. Maybe we need to begin looking at things from that perspective. But in any case, I think this is a sign of impunity, really, from NRM, meaning that, well, we will We will stop you. We will push you. We will scare you. We will intimidate you, and we will, sow a sense of fear amongst the young people so that you don't follow the Chagolanyis or any member of opposition out there. But it's not something that should be happening at this stage, regardless of the circumstances, because it's been argued that some of the opposition leaders asked that we're very provocative. I've never been provocative. I've been a victim of this NRA guy since they came in 1986. And I don't know anybody who's provocative. But I've also advised, including senior police officers, including inspector generals of police, that look, in the event that you know that citizens are being provocative, in this case it doesn't matter whether they're opposition, you're law enforcement. You should actually use detection of crime if it's pending, or if somebody commits a specific offense, deal with them and run with it. And public opinion will always be on your side, but not in this way. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Can I hear from you, Dr. Ojambo?
In Uganda here, I've been telling people we are living in a pretense, pretending that we are democracy when we are a revolution. The president calls his thing a revolution, and we keep calling it a democracy. And that revolution is for him alone. If he is fine and anybody who talks against him, that person must be crushed. That's the words he uses, crushed. So if you compare with Kenya, for example, our neighbors just across there,
Chairman.
you find the leaders of opposition being left to do their work. And the last time I checked, all of them have state security. They have state security to guard them. They don't just leave them. In fact, they are not looked at as enemies. They are looked at opposition leaders. In Uganda, every opposition leader, and go and check, the president refers to them as our enemies. Enemies. Because of the military background, they are enemies who should be crushed. And if, therefore, you see what happens to Bobby Wine, they are crushing him. And what do you expect? This is the fountain of the honor. He's saying, this Bobby Wine is they misguided, they have misguided ideas. We are going to crush them. And therefore, they are crushed. They are not protected, and that problem. Then number two, I have always said this, you have a partisan police. The police that thinks that their job is to make sure that nothing challenges the presidency or the ruling party. So anybody who does such things, they say, oh, this one wants to bring us problems. What would the police be concerned with a man who has gone to visit his friend in Bulindo? They have a private party, and after that private party, they have a fanfare back home. You have seen when Raila is moving from any place to another place, that road is blocked, and they have accepted that since they accepted democracy, Raila has a following, they will move, and you have not had anybody who dies in that rally. You have not had anything. You have seen Ruto recently. Ruto has been visiting Nyanza. And sometimes I say, this is a special country. The man is mobbed by so many vehicles and so many people, and is speaking on top of the vehicle. And people are yelling, nobody shoots him. But for us here, where the president is, you can't even reach there. They will push you until you are confirmed that maybe you are his operatives and his people that are around there. So Bobby Wine, I've always proved them that once you are dealing with a government which is aiming to crush you, now to correct impression, up to now we should have confirmed what has happened to Bobby Wine. And the reliable information that we have is that he was hit by a canister, a tear gas canister. Of course, the propagandist police has been saying that he stumbled and fell. Where he was, there was no vehicle. There are cameras which have been showing on our national TVs. The man was walking. He stumbled on which car? That car was superficial, that we cannot see it. The man was shot and the wound was shown. Why should the policeman be throwing a canister where an individual of Bobby Wine's caliber is? Because I am not a military man, but I teach security. Where such people are, you should even avoid any explosive. Because any character can use that opportunity and shoot him. So you make sure that you don't allow such a thing. This man was shown on TV releasing a canister on somebody, and even they chased him. We are just lucky that many people did not lose hope. The Nupu people chased this man up to a house, and they almost captured him. In fact, they almost lynched him, this young man who had shot that thing. So I don't know whether our police has little training, or when they are trained, they become overzealous. Because why should the person be shooting a canister?
They are following orders
where
from above.
there is a man of Bobby Wine's character. Me as a teacher of history, is just to tell people that, my friend, you have to be careful. You want to cause us a genocide in this country? By bad luck, you shoot this man and he dies. Why do you want to make our life very difficult? So I really want to think that it is the role of the government to make sure that Bobby Wine and other opposition leaders are safe, including us laymen who don't have anything, the hoi polloi. We must be protected. But if you see leaders of Bobby Wine caliber, a former legislator, a leader of one of the
official
opposition, is not a common person. And therefore, these lumpens who follow him
and is a music star
and start causing mayhem should be stopped. And therefore, police owes us a very big statement. They gave us a statement that, you see, there are two versions. They are presenting to us two versions for us to choose which one is correct. I heard the police spokesperson saying that there is a version of Nope, that he was hit by a canister, but the police also have their own version saying that the man stumbled when he was coming from a vehicle. Therefore, they are still investigating, and they have been investigating for all these days. Up to date, they have not come up with a conclusive thing to show us what happened. So they are suspect in this whole thing. But the most important thing is the character that has been created by the president. That once you don't agree with him, you must be crushed. That is wrong, in my view.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ojambo. I see Major has been taking a lot of notes in his small yellow book, and I think he's ready to respond or to agree or disagree with what you say.
The Jankwanzi Bible.
But also, Major, from your profession as a soldier or as someone in security, I would also like us, if you could just give us some insights into how to manage crowds, and if our forces are actually doing the right thing.
Okay. Now, first of all, I think the big topic that we are discussing is the matter of Bobby Wine, the recent matter of Bobby Wine. Because I'm saying that because we have failed to say the shooting. We couldn't agree. So I'm just saying the matter of Bobby Wine. You see, I take it from the statement Bobby Wine issued after coming out of the hospital. His statement was that there was brutal attack by police. But he was silent on injury, and he was silent whether it is a bullet or not. Because if it is a bullet, he would have said it. In his own statement, he released the statement. He didn't say so. He didn't say I was shot. He just said there was a fracas and a brutal attack by police. Therefore, basing on Bobby Wine's statement, I can with authority declare that there was no shooting. But also, since in his statement, he never came out clearly with what caused the injury, then he has even made it worse because he is the victim. The victim should have at least told us what happened, how he was injured. He was silent on that. So, in my opinion, suppose he was shot, which was clearly a bullet. Wasn't he going to mention it? Wasn't he going to say, yesterday's when I was shot? He was going to. So he was also duty bound to mention this, but he didn't. So if you take from his statement, it leaves a lot to be desired. Now, the genesis of this situation was as somebody says, they were from a function. But from a function, they started to move in a procession, in a mob. The laws of Uganda are very clear. Meetings and processions should be guarded. Now, if you do it, then it forms part of the illegal procession or illegal meeting. And this is what the police is dealing with. And this also moves me to the next point where we seem to see, there's a feeling that we as government or NRM look at political leaders, opposition leaders as enemies or treat them as such. You see, the genesis of this is that after election, some political leaders make declaration, we are going to remove him. They even go further to say, I'm not going for election again. They even say, Omusaja gena kugenda. In fact, they even put their supporters to a break because their supporters even ask them, you said you are removing the man. How long has it taken? So it puts the state on a position of defense that there's an agreed position of illegality. There's an agreed position of insurrection. And that is why the state now becomes nervous about this. Many politicians who have said, I will not go to election, but I'm going to remove him. Now, if you said you're not going for election, you are going to remove him. How then are you going to remove him? So this makes the state very cognitive in preventing an insurrection, in preventing a way of removing government by illegality. And that is why any movement around the city will be very much protected because of a pronouncement from the people themselves. And similarly, it is now actually our opposition members who identifies themselves not as opposition but as anti-government, contrary to the feeling that the government sees them as enemies. So this is what has formed the concept or the manner of handling procession in town, the manner of handling illegal moves. Suppose they move and keep building, and then they go towards their illegality. That's why the state is conscious, because of the pronouncements by word of mouth from the opposition. Now, on the matter of security, doctor says that in Kenya, the opposition leaders move in group, move wherever they want. Raila moves, but Raila has not declared that he's going to remove a government by force of arms.
Even swore
that he will remove
president.
it.
But that's
Yes.
that's what every opposition
Even
party
so as
does.
a
You
leader.
work to remove
Yes.
the government.
By force of arms? No, it won't happen. If you said you're going to remove Umusaja by force
I've
of
not heard NUP say
Yeah,
are.
they have said it,
I
and
know
they
they've
have
always said
actually
we are
challenged
removing a
them.
dictator,
They have even
hashtag.
actually their supporters have accused them of lying. You told us you are removing Umusaja. Why haven't you?
But not with force of arms. Have not heard that. That's
Okay,
I've not
leave
heard
force
that.
of arms. Removing him outside the constitutional means. Outside the constitutional means. So that is what happens. Now, about freedom or the approach to security, security is determined by the threats that you have. If Kenya takes theirs as if they have no threats, let them go ahead. But for us, we are very careful, especially where the presidency is concerned.
So what threats have you got?
Because we have had operations around the world, and we are not sure whether where we have been operating, our opponents don't come here. So we have to take care. If they don't, look, it may not be confirmed, but during Corona, our president was one of the most protective against Corona, even up to now. And I think in other jurisdictions around here, they took it that there was no problem with COVID. And some school of thought thinks that it had effect somewhere. So if Kenya thinks that that is how they're handling their security, we wish them well. But our security is determined by our threats. But our security officials are humane and they handle people well. Now, this takes me to crowd management. Therefore, the conclusion of the incident of Bobby is that we could read a conclusion from his statement, but his statement on release from Zambia is as vague as ever. He never said what caused the injury or even the gravity of injury.
But on that note, Major, I'm actually glad you've come back to this. I had wanted to give you time to finish your submission. Should we therefore say it is only bad when there's a bullet, when someone is hit by a bullet? Because I would think in a civilized society or a society that aspires to be one, any act of brutality, even just me pointing a finger at you, should not be something to be celebrated.
And can I a quick question also too? Is it also the responsibility of a victim injured when incidents happen, or is the responsibility of the police as the law enforcement agency to give us a clear, accurate position, in any case an official public position of what would have happened, regardless of whether it's Bobby Wines or anybody else?
Your question is whether it should only be a gun, a shooting or not. No, why I said this was just for us to have had clarity on the cause of injury.
That's
just
the police.
For the clarity on the cause of injury. Why I'm saying you don't rely on the police, and I was citing the statement, was because people would think that the police statement is doctored, that the police statement, like it can issue, and you say, no, we don't agree. And that's why I was more relying on the statement of the victim. The police, when the police issues a statement, you will say that is government mouth. So I would rather rely on the victim. What does he say? He knows what happened more than the police. You can't dismiss the police.
But where we're talking about ballistics or explosives, a victim is such a lay person, unless he's actually an expert in these fields. He himself didn't even know whether it was a bullet or a canister.
No,
when that incident happened, I actually spoke to his lawyer, and I was asking him what exactly happened. He said, what we see is we had a shot. We cannot tell whether it's a gunshot, a stray bullet, or a tear gas canister until medically that is assessed, the gravity of his injury is assessed, and until an expert actually tells us what exactly it is. So you cannot expect Bobby Wine, who has never held a gun, to actually know what happened to him and explain that, oh, I was hit by a tear gas canister, and give you all the specifics of the fragmentation, the fragments that hit him and how deep they went and so on. You just cannot expect that. He is already dealing with the trauma of what happened to him at that particular time. And we have to actually have that compassion and respect him for what he's going through. And
expert advice should come from the police. Whether people then go ahead and believe it or not is a different matter. But that is the responsibility of the police, who are public body, who are there to protect me. Now, if you are suggesting that there is a problem with the public perception about the police in this country, that means another failure of your regime, that you need to do some work. Why is it that the police are not believed?
Can I give some information?
Yes, and in just a minute, so that we go to the next.
In this country,
but I have not finished. You just grabbed the mic from me.
Sorry.
In this country, let me just give some little information. In this country, on matters which are related to things like Bobby Wine, the only authentic report comes from the police surgeon.
Major.
You see, why I was saying, I still go back to the victim. The call for the ballistic expert comes into the detail. For example, if he was shot by a gun, the ballistic expert is to identify which type of the gun. But to know whether it is a gun or something else, doesn't need a ballistic expert.
I would not be able to tell.
You wouldn't.
If I had a shot and I got an injury,
the ballistic expert is to identify which kind of gun was used. That is the detail. But here, whether you fell or whether you what, it doesn't need a ballistic expert. And again, the police issued a statement. But I'm just being fair that despite the statement issued by police, I'm more inclined on the victim's statement. It's not that the police didn't issue.
Which was also a vague statement.
Now, I think I've made myself clear there. Now, the next thing you wanted me to talk about is crowd management.
Yes.
You see, the training of the police and the military, especially the police, trains in detail about crowd management. But also, I must say, the police has a very elaborate syllabus on human rights. So police are trained in human rights, police are trained in the crowd management. So crowd management is determined by the strength of the crowd, for example. If the crowd is being violent, that is why sometimes the engagement rules varies. Where do they find live bullets? Where do they find canister? Where do they use these barriers? So the training is also elaborate. So the police are trained in crowd management, and I have no doubt that the Uganda police is trained. But the response or the application of the level of what to be used, the terms of engagement, depends on the nature of the crowd you're following. But our police are trained in crowd management, and they're also trained in human rights. And by the way, even the army, there's an elaborate syllabus on human rights in the army.
Okay, let's move. We could have still gone back to discuss that some more, but we're running out of time. Let's move on to the terror alert that we are currently under as a country. This is not the first time we're actually receiving such a threat from extremist groups like Al-Shabaab. We've had ADF also attack people in the past. We've had Al-Shabaab hit us in 2010. And I think that was the worst, the most deadly we've suffered. But when we look at what we've gone through in the past, what lessons have we learned? And then how best can we strengthen our security across borders? Could I start with you?
I think the terror alert is real because this was started by foreign media, where America and other powerful countries were warning their citizens that in Uganda there's going to be a problem. So everyone would take that serious. And for me, my plea is that we thank that government has put means, for example, for some of us who are in crowded places like universities, the security presence is there. We have seen some rudimentary checkings and the points being guarded. I think that is fine. And I want just to encourage the masses that we should be vigilant. Terrorism affects everybody. It does not choose whether you like the government or you don't like it, you are poor or rich. Terrorism is dangerous to all of us. Only that we request that government have a responsibility to protect us and make sure that nothing happens.
Thank you.
But the last thing that I can say is that we need to reduce things that put us in situations where we are terror targets. And the Major just talked about certain things like, for example, meddling in other people's conflict. We really need to reduce that. The president has been very open on Pan-Africanism, but we cannot do some of us are not sacrificing like himself, because for him he has really sacrificed for this country. That's why he has been in power for 40 years and all his family is enjoying at the helm of power. We really thank him for that sacrifice, but they should not really involve us in things that should not concern us.
We have about 14 minutes or so to go, Joseph.
Mr. Museveni has been sacrificing for this country so much that he exported the sacrifice to Rwanda, exported it to Burundi, exported it to Congo, exported it to Central African Republic, exported it to Somalia, making our young citizens die in Somalia, but all his exports are really for himself, because it was a sacrifice on behalf of his Museveni's interest. None of them has been in Uganda's strategic national interest, including Somalia, in which he was basically sacrificing Ugandan citizens, in exchange really for US dollars, because Americans were not willing to put bobbies on the ground, as it would say, after America got the humiliating defeat by Somalis in 1992. And so that actually, unfortunately, is the core element of this terrorism thing. That's why it's possibly not surprising that even if the Ugandan dissidents or opposition groups who want to associate with these guys, they will go opportunistic and find a succor in terror groups from outside Uganda with those kind of grievances against us. In any case, even in Congo, where I don't say we went, Museveni went with our people, they went ahead and looted, broke the lives of those people, and many Congolese are very angry about it. And at the end of the day, anyway, they will say that they're building some roads there. Back into Uganda, of course, linking along the line that Robert has talked about, part of this causes of some of these things will normally be in political disaffection. Nation states that are normally stable will usually not be having internal dissent, and very rarely nation states that don't engage in their foreign policies, engaging in other people's affairs, rarely are targeted by terrorists, both domestic and otherwise. So in our case, if you normally talk about the usual suspects, the ADFs and others, those are political conflicts. I was discussing Comrade Awich in another program yesterday. And I think even today I was talking about this thing about the commitment to National Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I think there is time for us, maybe about now, that we begin to have a national conversation about the Uganda question, the Buganda question, the regional question, and the post-Museveni question. And that should also therefore include a possibility in which we bring all dissenting voices in this country, including people associated with ADFs, as we have people associated with NRA now ruling, and so therefore have people associated with LRA that we compelled Museveni to talk to in Juba. So that we build a national consensus. That is the only way in which we'll be able to deal with this. Other elements of grievances, as far as terror is concerned, there is nothing beyond that. There may be possibilities, again, I'm not a security expert, but possibly we have a terror group in Kenya that is targeting a particular grouping that is being hoarded like M23 in Uganda, for argument's sake, and they want to go ahead and target people associated with that, and it will be a terror attack on Uganda, and Uganda as a country will be able to face that. But beyond that, generally, if we dealt with all those other issues, make sure that we don't create ambiguities when it comes to political leaders like the Robert Chagulanyi et al. We will be living in a harmonious, peaceful country the way we did, except that ours was interrupted in the early 80s by terror, throwing bombs and grenades in Kampala, lest you forget, by NRA.
Oh, the security alert, as my colleague said, is real because we have our development partners around the world who have invested heavily in security to the extent that they can even hear whispers in the cloud. So their technology and their capacity is enough to pick this. So they pick it not through rumors, but through scientific means. And when they pick it, they first alert their nationals. But while they are alerting their nationals who are within the range of terror in Uganda, they also pass information to Uganda state. Because we have what we call JAT, Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force. This task force is inbuilt with cooperation with our development partners because terrorism is a threat to everybody. So they pass this information and also logistics because we could have differences with our development partners, say for example on anti-homosexuality law. But I think on issues of security of terror, we are united. And we have said, yes, we can disagree here, but when we agree on a common good, it's okay. So in the areas of cooperation on security, we are together. We can quarrel over anti-homosexuality, but this one we are together. So they pass the information to JAT, including resources. So that is it. Now, I just like to comment about the part played by government. On top of operationalizing JAT, the police all goes ahead to give awareness. You have seen posters put in places, don't touch this, leave bodies that you are suspicious about, don't be in crowded places and the like. So that is the little part that the state does. But also on response. When there is need to respond, the state responds in appropriate time, and we always urge them, please be professional. And a professional group have been trained to handle this. Not only are we talking by word of mouth, but special training has been done. So, with the current disagreement around the world, others on line of religion, others on line of economic, others on this line, we shall continue to have our brothers and sisters who don't prefer conventional means of solving problems, but they prefer the other method. And therefore, I'm glad that the world is united and we keep it on.
So, but if you are to respond to what these two gentlemen were saying about Uganda engaging or exporting I mean, I don't know what the right word is, meddling in the affairs of others? Or what would you say?
Well, we have taken as a country or a government steps to help our other colleagues abroad. We have been in the spirit of Pan-Africanism. We have been in South Sudan and in Congo, in Central African Republic, in Somalia maybe is where you're saying. But in other countries, we have gone there with a signed MOU with the host countries. Like in Congo, we go to Congo now, we sign an MOU and respect it. Same thing with South Sudan, same thing with Central African Republic. Now, the matter in Somali is an African Union matter. It is at the AU, and it is an AU operation. So we simply contribute troops. So we are contributing troops on an AU mandate with a view that we are contributing in our Pan-African spirit, because it is an AU operation. It's not a Ugandan thing. Therefore, if we faulted by responding to Pan-African call, then we may be paying the cost. But that is what it is. Several resolutions are passed to that effect in AU.
Joseph, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah.
You're clearly not in agreement with what...
This Pan-Africa thing is thrown around by Mr. Museveni, and somehow some Ugandans buy into it. Of course, you know, the first, involvement in Somalia was not an African Union thing. It was an American thing. It's an open thing. And it was an American thing that basically Mr. Museveni used our people to go ahead and go and do the job for them. That's an open thing. And I've always continuously pushed it deliberately because Ugandans need to know it. But we already went then they engaged in it, but we need to put it in context because we need to help ourselves to make sure that we make the right decision going forward. Even the African Union was necessarily just brought in, to basically to wrap up the situation. And I think this thing must stop. Now, number two, we went to Rwanda. It was not a Pan-African thing. Pan-Africans don't invade other African countries.
We didn't go to Rwanda.
Pan-African, you went there in October 1990, and you continue with Rwanda, including the M23 deal. So that's not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanists don't invade. Pan-Africanists don't serve interests of other people. Pan-Africanism is not about African countries come together. Pan-Africanism is much more conscious, much more detailed, and the ideological thing, about the African personality and African identity, including African economics and African security interests. So a Pan-Africanist cannot serve the interest, which is basically anti-African. So that is the depth of the ideological contradiction that we're raising here. So
the time is going.
We have 6, actually, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
But I just wanted to give information. 2 sentences. The first sentence is that the idea of Pan-Africanism has been a story for a very long time. But recently, the CDF of Uganda told us the real thing. And for some of us who are scholars, information from some respectable people like CDF cannot be neglected. Mm-hmm. He said Americans have not paid our money. Mm-hmm. And that meant that we have sent in Somali mercenaries to fight for money. We didn't know that. Number 2, this Pan-African thing, why don't they also give the responsibility to other countries? We have done it for a very long time, almost 20 years. Why don't they also give it to Mauritius and Tanzania and other countries? Is it our responsibility of fighting for Pan-Africans?
Let me respond, and then I give you each 30 seconds to conclude.
2 things. The Pan-African, by the way, did not start with this interference, as you call it.
There.
Our Pan-African started with South Africa. We greatly contributed to the liberation of South Africa. We brought them to Kaweta. We trained them. We armed them. We took them back at a time when people like
just like Tanzania.
You notice I didn't mention that.
Yeah, Dr. Kamuzu Banda did not want. Even in Kenya or Congo under Mobutu, they were not. But we did it. So what if you are saying we have done this Pan-African for 20 years? Please extend it. Yes. It's over. So we shall see whether we are wrong or right. But we did it to South Africa. So I wish you had stopped that at that time. So right now I must repeat that the operations in Somalia is an African Union thing with resolutions passed from Addis Ababa in AU. I end there. Now. The other thing that I wanted to say was Rwanda. Rwanda, did you know that if you tell Rwandese that Uganda went and liberated them, they take it like an
Uganda
insult.
invaded, not liberated, invaded.
Do you know that Rwandese take it as a great insult? What are you saying? Who told you? Where were you? Rwandese went on their own, they liberated themselves. And if you tell a Rwandese that Ugandans went and did what, to them it sounds insulting, like you did
but
it.
Uganda
The
did,
truth
right?
is, Rwandese refugees went on their own.
What was Okwiri
So
doing
you
there?
can accuse us of South Sudan, Central African, Congo, Somalia, but please don't accuse us of Rwanda. Because to
What was
them,
Okwiri doing there?
he went as a deserter on his own. He went on his own. But the truth is,
that you went
to Rwandese, to say Uganda went and liberated, it is an insult to a Rwandese. They don't. And indeed, Rwandese went on their own and liberated themselves.
For
So
sure.
please accuse us this side. Don't decide.
Okay,
Comrade
gentlemen, we're running
yeah.
out of
I'm
time.
just concluding. Yeah,
Okay, just
Comrade
conclude.
Awich, you have to do that. No, look, we start the liberation struggles and Pan-Africanism. We started as UPC. You've said it before. As early as 1962, we committed ourselves to actively supporting the African National Congress. The Musevenis want to pick credit to the latter thing that they did. They did it anyway, regardless of whoever was leader in this country. Even if it was Idi Amin, they would have done the same thing. So that is fine. South Sudan, again, for the record, we are the ones who started supporting SPLM in 1983. So that is for the record. So from a Pan-Africanist context, it's only those two. The rest are expansionist things,
In fact,
which are basically
Mbeki was really thanking
Gentlemen,
me.
you need to conclude. And,
So for me,
will
I
wrap
just
it up.
need to conclude with 3 sentences. The first one, that leaders should respect each other and themselves. Leaders should not put themselves in precarious conditions at any time.
Like
But also,
what Bobby Wine does.
also the government should respect the other part of the leaders. This business of crushing people, some of us, it irritates us. You can't crush people everywhere when you're president. Number 2, I think that with the terror, I want to encourage the public to be very vigilant. Whether the thing is coming from where or whatever,
Yeah, regardless,
we
yes.
need to be very vigilant and make sure that nobody is harmed by these cowards. Because for me, I also believe people who come and attack people who don't have any problem with them, they are cowards.
Yeah.
So we really encourage them, but government should also do everything to make sure that it reduces on the chances of these people being incited to attack us. Then on the first topic that we started with, which was the leadership in government, I think the opposition, nope, should do up their game and clear their house so that we don't want mayhem. Because when NUP has problems or NRM out, it is Ugandans who suffer. So we really hope that the leader of NUP will organize their house so that they don't allow opportunists like Lumu to utilize these chances.
Major, let's hear from you last.
I'm last. Yes.
Your conclusion.
I
So
will-
the
the
discussion.
government-
You're taking my minute. You're taking my minute, but carry on.
No, I'm the last. Now, I'm happy that in the debate or in the discussion, I see like we are drawing to a consensus. We seem to agree as to how leaders should conduct themselves. I agree. I also agree that the opposition are not doing their best. They are actually making their own goal, as somebody put it. I only think that as government that we should continue to invest more into human rights of our state agents, human rights training, and crowd control.
True.
So that while we manage the crowd, to prevent those who want to do illegitimate things, be cool, we should do that. So more investment will be made in crowd training and human rights.
Thank you very much to you all, retired Major Awich, Pollar, Joseph Othieno, and Dr. Robert Ojambo for your participation and contributions to today's conversation here on the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. I'm Judith Atim. We'll be back next week, same time. Goodbye for now.